Good day again, good people. We left Quilpie with some trepidation and heavy hearts because we really enjoyed our time there at the caravan park. Had a ball for 2.5 months, but our initial plan was to go north through Boulia and across the Plenty Highway, but because of flooding we couldn't achieve that. So we went south through to Nakundra. This is the waterway that we camped at Nakundra. We had a really nice meal at the Nakundra pub and saw some nice sunsets and sunrises again. We're getting pretty used to those. Native bee nest. We came across this area of Dawson's burrowing bees, which is pretty amazing because they're solitary bees, but they all sort of clump together in the same area, and they were making a hell of a noise, and there must have been thousands and thousands of them. And then from Nakundra we went south through Tibooburra again, and there's not much on here because the previous videos had something about Tibooburra. South through Packsaddle, which is an interesting sort of place, not much more than a roadhouse really, but they had this little sort of saddle museum, if you like, Packsaddle. And again, you can donate your hats, which some people seem to have done. And then we went through to Broken Hill. That's the Palace Hotel, which was famous for the scenes of Priscilla, Queen of the Desert, and we had a meal in there too. But Broken Hill's an old mining town. They used to mine silver and lead and zinc, I think. But that's all stopped now. There's still the slag heaps looming over the town. And I think the town's struggling a little bit because it doesn't have a major industry there now. Tourism obviously is a big part of it. And but still some beautiful old buildings around and some interesting mining memorabilia. And this is the mining memorial, and each of those poppies that you see there represents a fallen miner that died on the job. The city of Broken Hill from up at the Miners' Lookout, the Miners' Memorial. The old slag heaps underneath us. They mine silver and lead, and then the memorial to the miners who lost their lives. And this is the famous Bell's Milk Bar. It was established as a milk bar in 1956, but there has been a family connection through confectioners and what have you since 1892. It's a fabulous place. They make really good milkshakes and thick shakes and things like that. And there's a little sort of museum kitchen thing out the back with all the old things that you'll remember from your childhood, or maybe not, like the old black and white TV. Really interesting place to go and visit. Tiny Belinda doll in Broken Hill. amazing likeness. And this is the living desert just outside of Broken Hill. It's an amazing botanical garden, and it has this walk trail through all these sculptures done by international artists in local stone. Some of them pretty remarkable and some of them less so, but it's a pretty remarkable spot. And of course you can't go to Broken Hill without stopping by at the gallery that was the home of Pro Hart, car collector, artist, car painter, sculptor, raconteur, and I must admit, not a huge fan of his work. Some of it I liked, but it was interesting to go there and see his output, all the stuff that's on display, stuff that hadn't been sold. And in some rooms there's just heaps and heaps of it that just in racks. His mind worked differently than a lot of people, and he had a quirky sense of humour which came out in his artwork as well. So we spent quite a bit of time in there having a look at what he had to do and say.
Do you want to just move?
And this is Silverton, a little town that's had people and stations and things around since about the 1850s, but in 1875 they found silver and the population grew to about 3,000, and it's now below 50. But again, it's one of those little towns that it's developed as a tourist area. It's only 20 odd k's, 25 k's out of Broken Hill, and a lot of people come here for the history and the museums and the quirky sculptures. It's also where Mad Max, one of the Mad Max movies, was filmed, so there's a Mad Max museum, which was closed when we were there, unfortunately. Some beautiful old stone buildings made out of local stone and mud and what have you. Quirky little place in history, and the birthplace of the Silverstone tramway. The government didn't want to put a railway in, so some enterprising fellow made his own railway and connected Silverstone to Port Augusta in South Australia, and passed through Broken Hill, which became the bigger town, and then and Broken Hill is still on South Australian time rather than New South Wales time, which is the state that it's in. So that's quite interesting. And when you go from Broken Hill to Menindee, and you've got to change your clocks, and they're both in the same state. And there's resident donkeys wandering around the streets as well. I've long wanted to go to Menindee Lake south of Broken Hill when it's had water in it. Sometimes it dries up quite a bit, and we couldn't have got much more water into this lake system. The town had been flooded earlier in the year. All the lakes were pretty full, and since we left there has been more rain and more flooding around Menindee. But it's again another small town, maybe 100 to 200 people. The lake system is pretty complex, and the wildlife is suitably abundant. But again, it's another little town where they've tried to encourage people to stay rather than just drive through. Burke and Wills had a base camp here at one stage because of the water supply. I've got this Aboriginal artwork on posters around the town, and it's really a nice little spot and well worth a visit. We spent about 4 days down there before we went back to Broken Hill and then onwards in our journey, and you can sort of get an idea of how much water is going through the locks from these photos here. A lot of water flooding through. it was really nice to visit Menindee and the lakes, etc. But that's it for our bit. I'll leave you with this truly stunning photo that Belinda took across the lakes, I think at sunset one evening.